Awful night last night. I had just so many nightmares. I had like really terrifying nightmares of shit being done to me by governments, and I know it doesn't mean that anything is real or anything that's going to happen to me, but it was just like it's just I'll show you how it impacts into your consciousness, But I hope you're all keeping well today. Some sad news. Alan Watt from Cutting Through the Matrix passed away recently. And Alan Watt, if you don't know who he was I did a few shows with him a while back. One on how the music industry is basically, a psychological control mechanism, and also on the whole fake alien thing. You know my feelings on that. Not that I don't believe in aliens. I just don't. I just believe that there's been a vested interest in replacing Christianity, particularly in places like America, with the whole thing of aliens arriving as a new kind of Jesus Christ. And this has been very carefully orchestrated. And it's still going on. There's those new Navy footage things. I'm not saying there aren't strange phenomena. Of course there is, UFOs and everything. But governments have used that for their own, their own purposes. I wrote an article about Roswell, how it was used to quell fears about the Russians getting the hydrogen bomb, and by making Americans think they had spaceman technology to fight the commies. But they've always done this, and that was the great gift that Alan Watt brought to alternative media. He was probably the first really kind of prosaic, uh, realistic voice in the post Bill Cooper era. So he must have been on the air for 20 years now, and he was the first one to talk about things like the Trilateral Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations, and the Bilderbergs were really about the re-engineering of society into a scientific and a psychological dictatorship. And he was way ahead of the game there. Now I knew about this stuff. Funny enough, I read about all this many years ago, back in the 80s and 90s, in magazines like Mother Jones and Utney Reader. And those magazines, if you read, I don't know if they're still going. I know Mother Jones is. If you were to read those magazines today, they'll tell you that they'd call the same things they wrote about in the 90s conspiracy theory. This is the funny thing. They were the ones who told me about, that's how I found about the CFR and the Bilderbergs and the Trilaterals was through those magazines. What they really were, because you read about them in the New York Times, but you didn't tell you what they were really about. But Alan Watt, through his very good diction, a very confident speaking voice, and his delivery, very that kind of Scottish dour thing. I don't mean I'm not degenerating Scottish people. I'm just saying that that like sort of like that kind of Scottishness. He delivered it very very well from his home in Canada to people who didn't know about it, and he was also so he was probably the first of the grown up truthers. You know what I mean? The ones that weren't like waving their arms around and going "Makadapista" and all this kind of stuff. He was the first one to actually go in there like a real journalist, I guess. A commentator, and he was the first one of those that wasn't a lunatic. Wasn't hysterical or a mad Christian or something like that. And so he reached a lot of people. He was a colossus, really, when you think about it. And he he stuck to the same thing basically, and it could be grim at times. But look at the world we live in. He wasn't lying at anybody, was he? He was also the first one I can remember to get the wrath of the mentally ill truthers. Anyone who knows any, this is one of the reasons I have nothing to do with truthers. Is so many of them are mentally ill. There's so much mental illness among that scene, and it's an evangelical mental illness that if you say one little thing or two little things they don't like, they'll spend the next 2 or 3 years trying to destroy it. I mean, this is like the kind of this is this is what's refreshing about the scene we have now. And the anti-lockdown scene doesn't seem to be there, but he was the first one to ever get hassled like badly that way. And for what reason? Like they'd be saying things like he was a Satanist, which is just the typical mentally ill truther type stuff. And so anyway, but he stuck to his guns, and he's a proven truth speaker. I could put him, and he was the first one to properly outlay the things, the perniciousness of the Fabian Society and H.G. Wells and people like that, and what these people were really about. And one thing he did was the thing on sports. He pointed out that sports are a mechanism by which men don't become adults, and women don't, and soap operas for women who way of not becoming motherhood mavens, as we call them in the kind of classical sense. And so he was very good. He's very good with all that stuff. So I don't know what the circumstances of his death was. If he was ill or not, but that was someone whose name will be remembered, and should, quite rightly. And the few shows I did for him, he was just like what he is on the air. He's just Mr. Matter of Fact kind of thing. But that was a needed voice. That was the counterbalance to Alex Jones, screaming and waving his arms. And I can remember, like, I think he was even on an Alex Jones show, and you have Alan Watt doing his thing, and then Alex Jones going, the way he likes to finish people's sentences for them, and continue, and then Alan Watt would come in. It would be like listening to a death metal concert fall, death and stop, and then it's like a Gregorian chanting, and Gregorian chanting. But yeah, that's someone whose life should definitely be celebrated. And God knows how many people he woke up, but just by the longevity and sticking to his guns. But yep, scientific and psychological dictatorship was what he basically pushed. And God rest the man, he was 100% right. 100% right. And like poor Ian, it's a shame we're losing these warriors in this part of the battle, it's a shame that they couldn't be around to be on the other side, but that's our job. We carried on to the other side. The battles for Helm's Deep was over. The battle for Middle Earth has begun. That's the stage we're at now. I was just thinking, like, there, Alan Watt cutting through the matrix. Boy, did he call it right. Scientific. If you haven't heard from him, go back and listen to his shows. Alan Watt. I repeat, well, no, don't. If you post, those of you who think I'm deleting your comments, I'm not. If you post a link in the comments, for some reason, YouTube deletes it, except it's me, and so most of the time, not all the time, most of the time, and so go back and look for Alan Watt cutting through the matrix, and you'll find some really listen to stuff that he was saying in 2006, and you go, oh, Jesus Christ, he called the lockdown perfectly then scientific psychological dictatorship, based on keeping human beings afraid of the vitality of life. I always remember one of the things he said that always struck with me was that, how psychiatry medicates people that are depressed, when depression is a form of a spiritual thing. It is, that's where the blues come from, blues music come from. Where do you think it comes from? And poetry. Would Sylvia Plath have written poems, like 1 year in every 10, or wrote the Bell Jar, if she was on Xanax? Think about it. So yeah. So I mean, look after yourselves. Take care of yourselves. Laugh at the absurdity of these people. Consciousness is going through the spin cycle at the moment, and find enjoyment in your hobbies and your art. And if you're an artist, create like a motherfucker, and like you never created before, and show love. And when I say show love, I mean like that. It's like when you hear a bunch of statistics, so many people have died. Think about all of the Rona. Think of the ones who've died of other things, and no one cares about them because they don't fit this leftist Marxist statistic ideology. Love, like Todd Rundgren's song, love is the answer. And it doesn't matter if you're pagan like me, or Christian, atheist, and agnostic, whatever. It's just, show that kindness, show that and like I said, if you're dealing with the officials, like the police, don't be antagonistic, don't get yourself in trouble, be, and also if you're like in a shop and they say, You know, don't start a fight if they throw you out or something like that for not wearing a mask. You know, just like I said, make a list of who, when this is all over, like I said, without being vindictive, make a list of who hurt you, but not to get revenge, just to avoid them. Because, again, I'll say this over and over again, greatest education ever. Take care of yourselves. Love yous. Bye.